This is Replicon Radio, RepliconRadio.com, live every Monday, 6 to 10 Central. But yeah, we do have a very, very special guest, our second one of the evening. You may know him as the voice of the Crypt Keeper and many other things that we will speak about. But the legendary John Kassir. How you doing, man?
Hello, creeps.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's what's up right there. That's the way to start it off.
He did it right. He just came out the gate.
Hell yeah. I didn't even have to ask him.
What's up, man?
All right, so who am I talking with? Let's start with names.
Well, I'm Freaky P.
I'm Big Roo.
And I'm Dead Body Man.
Okay, cool. Where are you guys broadcasting from? Your bathroom?
Yes, sir.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
We
So
lather.
I have a bit of an echo. I don't know if you guys are too far from the microphone or something.
Oh, yeah, it's because we got the other two. It's like I'm right here, but the other two guys are kind of away. So
we got to talk a little louder.
Yeah, we got to talk louder. We're sorry about that.
No, you guys got to get chummier. It's the echoes. I can't hear you. You're
Chummier.
loud enough. It just, yeah, there you go. You guys got to for your audience, I'm just making them feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
You guys got to be like sitting in each other's laps.
There we go.
Okay?
There we go. You're just starting them with a good time now. Okay, that's what we're doing.
So we usually do that when we're off air.
Yeah.
Like, don't spoil our secrets
Okay.
here.
Personal bubble. Okay.
That's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, I want to say thank you for
Sorry I was
picking
late.
up.
Sorry I was late. I know we wanted to talk earlier, but I live here in Southern California, Creekside. One of these really cool canyon homes, and my neighbor's giant oak tree. It's got to be like a 200-year-old oak tree came down, and so I had to give him a little bit of a hand. Not getting rid of it, mind you, just getting him some gasoline for a chainsaw.
There you go.
and then I came home and I have a puppy. He's like 5 months at this point, a border collie. We took him down. Yeah, I have a little place where I set up for the dogs to go do their business and stuff. And at that
Smart
age,
dog.
they eat a lot of cloth and towels, whatever they can get a hold of. So they got like a chain link of poop coming out their ass, and and they're like freaking out, like their legs on fire or something. Walking around going, "Dad, help me, man, help me! I got this thing coming out my ass and it won't come off." So otherwise, I would have been a little earlier. There you go. I know.
all
Talk about personal bubbles, right?
Poop happens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does.
Freaky
Yeah,
poop.
poop happens.
Freaky poop.
That's like that would make such a great T-shirt. Poop happens.
Right? So clever.
Or like a thing when people carry their kids in their little their snugglies or whatever you call them, their
swaddles or whatever the
onesie?
fuck it's called.
Yeah, and it should say "poop happens" on it.
Oh, imagine how much money you can make on such a product. That's
I know.
everywhere.
I was just talking to my neighbor today. We were, as we were going to get gasoline, we were talking about how, social media has become, just a wasteland of. There's obviously tons of talented people out there and very inventive people, and then there's just a wasteland of, like his kids have been watching these shows where these kids are, the people they're watching are not talented. They're talking about nothing. And I was like, well, who made more money on YouTube last year than anybody else? On the internet, period. The kid's like 8 years old, and he made like $500 million.
Holy shit.
He has if you've heard of this kid, I don't know his name. I just overheard the end of the conversation on the radio about it. But he evidently does reviews of toys.
Oh, yeah.
And he got such a big following that, of course, all the kids are following. Then, of course, everybody wanted to advertise their toys on his channel. And then, then the toy companies are paying him to review their toys. On top of it, the kid's like a billionaire almost already.
I wonder if we were listening to the same show. I heard that too.
Yep.
He's like 8 years old.
Yeah.
He's like 8 years old.
That's crazy.
There it is. I see it.
Broadcasting.
Ryan's toy reviews, $11 million testing
And
toys.
you guys are... You guys are
What the hell are we doing talking to the Crypt Keeper?
broadcasting. You guys are broadcasting out of the bathroom. One of you sitting on the toilet, the other one's two of the guys in the tub.
Well, our knees are
Across
clacking
the room.
together right now.
It's funny that I've actually seen I've seen podcasts that legitimately do that. Like I've
Yeah.
actually seen. There's one guy that used to always interviews people in the closet.
Oh, yeah, I heard about
I love
that. Yeah.
That's funny.
I love that.
But yeah, that's crazy.
Back
I
in the
saw
Closet.
this
What does he call the show? Back in the Closet?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the kid stuff, man. That's really my niece watches this show all the time. It's a lady called Miss Hands. She's not even on the show, it's just her hands. She's playing with toys and like talking, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my god, I'm this guy and I'm this guy too. Like just like you did when
What
you were a
the-
kid.
what the
She
fuck?
makes over 6 figures just doing that. Like
Yeah, I knew a woman that called herself Miss Hand too.
we'll talk later.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, well, this is a more original conversation and talking about the Crypt Keeper anyway. But fire away, guys. It's really great to talk to you guys. You know,
absolutely.
Just starting the whole season of conventions and getting busy. I'll be in Detroit, Chelmsford for the Astro Comic Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, right?
Astronomicon. We'll be out there.
Astronomicon, that's it.
Yeah,
We will be all.
We'll all be out there, man. We were there last year. We're big supporters of Astronomicon and everybody over at Magic Ninja. It was a wonderful time last year. I'm sure it's going to be even better this year. So we definitely look forward.
Yeah,
to
they're
it.
awesome guys, and they're associated with the Misfits, which are really great guys. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Are you a big Misfits fan?
I didn't even know about them at first. They were just coming on the scene some years ago, and they approached me at one of the conventions and said, "Hey, dude, can you do like an intro for us for our album?" And I was like, "Well, I can't really because I don't own the character. If it was something you wanted to just have me introduce you for a live performance or something, I could do something like that. Of course, I did a little thing for them, and they unbeknownst to me, they recorded it and then put it on their website introducing the album. And I was like,
But it's not your fault at that point.
I was like,
right.
I said, you just did that at your own risk because it's like if the Tales from the Crypt people come and sue you, it's not my fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I told you.
That's awesome.
But it's got to be the most ripped off franchise out there. I mean, I go to every convention and it's just like slews of it. But that just has to do with how popular the show was.
Oh, absolutely.
Such a great show. I collected the comic books as a kid, and I couldn't even believe they were turning it into a show. I was like, oh, it'll only be for like freaks like me. It's HBO. Was just I had done their first series, First and 10 years before. And then had worked on Dream On and some of their other shows and comedy specials and stuff. And when they approached me to come audition at Kevin Yeager's studio for Tales from the Crypt, I'm going, "You're kidding me! I love those comic books. You're turning it into a show." They're like, "Yeah." And then not only did it become a great show and popular for its time, but also, its longevity has just been incredible. It's just been incredible because who knew kids were sneaking down and watching it?
I was one of those.
I was one of those kids
we
too.
We were all one of those kids.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my favorite shows growing up.
Especially
I don't think I've ever missed an episode.
I'm saying especially back then, it was like, you guys were like nowadays. It's common for all these networks to have their own programming and stuff like that. Like that was a brand new thing back then.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
with the kids, there was it was you don't get it was nudity and everything else. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, right.
It was Tales from the Crypt and Joe Bob Briggs. Like that's what I watched.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like so that.
Well, it's funny because First and 10, this first series I was on for them, I was on that show for 6-7 years, and that was about a football team, and O.J. Simpson was the general manager, and Delta Burke on the team, and they had guys like Chris Maloney as the quarterback, and Jason Begay, and all these different people on the show, and then real football players, Lawrence Taylor, and each week they'd have somebody different. And Joe Namath was on the show a couple of times. They had Joe Montana as a commentator on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I played the Bulgarian field goal kicker. I could kick 60-yard field goals. It was just a hysterical character. They used to write me so much fun shit. But literally, that was their formula for HBO when they first started. And it was working well for them. It was comedy, sex, and sports.
Absolutely.
And this show, had plenty of all three. And people go, "Oh, I used to watch you on First and 10 as a kid, Zagreb Skanuski," right? And I go, "Yep, that's the name of my character." And I was like, "Come on, you watched it for the titties, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." The parents had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just watching this football show, Mom.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I kind of started to like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's for sure. But actually, I wanted to, before we get too ahead of it, like, let me hold on. I'm sorry. So generally, like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously you're known for that, but like, you didn't really start in that field, right? Like, you did I started as an actor. I got my degree at Towson University in theater, and I'd been studying acting, and there was guys like Eric King, who as Dokes from Dexter, and Charles Dutton, who had his own show Rock and was such a great actor. Was at school with me when I was there, and John Glover came from that school, studied at that school, and Dwight Schultz, from the A-Team, and Murdoch, and so, I had some really good training as an actor and got my first off-Broadway show in New York, and quickly found out how little money you made in the theater and how hard it was to make a living, even if you were working. Hell, I was making more money street performing in front of the Metropolitan Museum than I was making in the theater. So, I had been working with a comedy group for many years that started we started in college. It was kind of like Baltimore's version of Second City that we had going on. And we kept a small group of us together and did some tours for the USO, doing comedy and that kind of thing. So I had dabbled a little bit in some stand-up, but I really hadn't done any professional stand-up. And but I had gotten an off-Broadway show that was a big hit off-Broadway. It was called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down. And no, we weren't actually naked, but the metaphor is kind of like how you feel in front of the audience when you're bombing. Like, you feel like your trousers around your ankles, Full mom, yeah.
And starred myself along with Scott Bakula and a guy named Jerry Colker, who wrote the piece. And Michael Rupert, who was a Tony Award-winning actor and composer, wrote the music. And think Dreamgirls, but for stand-up comics. And so it was just the three of us. We did, the three of us were like the whole show. We played the agents and the, news reporters and all this stuff. And it's like three misfit comics who come together and start their own kind of three-guy act. And they become a big hit, and then of course the spoils of television and movies and stuff kind of, goes through that whole thing in the second act. And while I was doing the show, some talent scouts from Star Search, which was brand new at the time, came and saw me in the show, and they go, "Hey, we want you to be on Star Search." And I was like, "As what? A singer?" I go, I'm a pretty good singer. I'm doing a musical here, but I wouldn't, I can't compete with the likes of Sam Harris and, these people that were, singing their hearts out on a thing. They go, "No, we want you to come on as a stand-up comic." And I go, "Well, I'm not really a stand-up comic. I'm just playing it in the show." They go, "Well, you can win $100,000. I'm like, "Fuck, I'll do it."
Give it a shot. Hell yeah.
Have you seen my act? I'm working on it tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
And so I went on the show, and having done sketch comedy all those years and stuff, I didn't really have jokes or a routine. I would go on and I'd like do the Wizard of Oz in 2.5 minutes, and I had created this persona of this guy who could like change channels on himself with a remote control. And I was addicted to television, so I was kind of like a TV addict, and I could I would channel TV shows and do all this fun stuff. And I just kept winning, and finally found myself in the semifinals where I beat Rosie O'Donnell, and I found myself in the finals where I beat Sinbad.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I win $100,000, and they're like, "Okay, you're opening for Tom Jones in Vegas." And I'm like, "What?" Everybody's like, "Congratulations." I go, "I can't open for Tom Jones in Vegas." They go, "Why not?" I go, "I got no fucking act." I was like, the only material I have is what I did on, the 7-8 spots that I did on Star Search at 2.5 minutes each. I was like, that's not long enough for an opening. And they go, well, you can open it as an opening act. You're only doing 20 minutes, so yeah, put it together, get it tight. Get into the clubs, work it up. Which I did in a very short time. Next thing I know, I'm opening for the Temptations and the Four Tops on their TNT tour.
Jesus.
I'm opening for Lou Rawls at Michigan State in front of 5,000 people. I open for Rodney Dangerfield in his club. I open, I'm doing some improv with Robin Williams on stage at the Improv, and my buddy Rick Overton and some other people. This kind of thing. And I'm doing getting parts in sitcoms.
That's amazing.
TV shows, and making a real living as an actor. Of course, I moved, left New York, then shortly after, because this is where I needed to be to make a living. And while I was working for HBO, I got a call, and they're like, "Hey, we need somebody who's a comic, an actor, and can create these fun characters." And I remember going into Kevin Yeager's studio where he was just recording people on a boombox, trying to find somebody that would match the puppet that he was working on. And they had some of the top voice actors in the business and some other comics and stuff. I could see them looking at the puns and the material going, "Be careful what you ask for, you may get it." And they're like, "This is terrible. Who says this shit?" And I'm laughing under my breath because I know, having read the comic books, this is the Crypt Keeper. He loves saying this shit.
Yeah.
This is like Shakespeare to him, And the alliteration is actually quite clever. I mean, it's not from all the stuff we've done over the years for advertising and Bud Light and all this stuff. Some of them were really good at coming up with stuff, and some of them they didn't know how to make it scan right, and the puns were really bad, and that kind of thing. And we always had great writers writing great stuff for the Crypt Keeper, and then eventually I got good enough. Got a knack for it myself to be able to improvise as him, and they would be, "Oh, we're using that, I love a girl who'll give you head and then let you keep it." And they're like, "Oh, we're using that."
That's golden.
That's awesome.
So it was, so I mean, and then when I started doing that voice, for Kevin Yeager, he was laughing so hard, not trying to ruin my recording, that I started laughing, and I kind of kept that because it was, the Crypt Keeper laughing at his own jokes,
That's how the laugh
like,
was born.
Everybody's in on the joke. Everybody's in on the joke. This is perfect, So it was working the way I wanted it to work right there from the audition.
That's awesome.
And I think it was just like the very next day he had me doing it for Joel Silver and Dick Donner in their office. The two of the biggest producer and director in freaking Hollywood.
That's crazy.
And they're like, "Okay, we'll see you on the set." And I was like, "Wow, this is the coolest, easiest job I've ever gotten," and people don't even know how cool it is,
This is what I was saying. Like, how was that? Like,
I would love to do voiceover work.
I was trying to think of that, like, this time. Like you said, you read the comics growing up. You essentially kind of accidentally became a stand-up. You know what I mean? Like, and then they heard your voice, and like, were you a fan of horror? Like, I mean, you're in the guy's basement who created.
I loved
Chucky
horror. Universal horror monster movies were my favorite. My to this day, my favorite, movie as a kid, and comedy horror was Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein. I mean, I loved that movie, and I loved, they used to, in Baltimore where I grew up, they used to have what they called Twilight Movie, and it came on maybe like 4:30 in the afternoon, and my mom would be making dinner, and I had done my homework. Not really, I never did my homework, but I'd be sitting in front of the TV set while my mom was making dinner or whatever, and they would have anything from, most of the time I'd not wind up not watching, because it'd be like anything from a Doris Day movie to musical to but then they'd have the sci-fi stuff. They'd have Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and they'd have Mothra, and they'd have Ultraman. Ultraman movie. All these kind of things, and then and they'd show all the Universal horror monster movies. you know, and I was just like, you know, I'd be sitting there imitating the theremin. I'd be, you know, my brothers and sisters would be going, shut up.
That's awesome.
Now I make a living doing it, you know.
Perfect, right?
So it's, you know, I mean, the voiceover work has been really a blessing too as an actor, you know, on top of my other work, because, and now it's, you know, become my main work, and I love it. I love it because it's just so much fun to do, and B, you get to play things that you would never get to play on camera. You know, you're limited. They limit you by how you look, or you know, what they expect of you to be able to play. And I mean, that was the original Deadpool. You know, obviously they're not going to hire me over over Ryan Reynolds to play, you know, Deadpool, but I get to play him. I get to play, you know, originate him in the games. You know,
that's awesome.
And so you know but then also as you get older, not that I'm an old guy, but I'm, you know, in Hollywood, you know, you hit a certain age, and there's just not. They don't write as many parts for you. There's not as many parts for you, and they hire the same actors over and over again for everything.
Yeah.
And not only that, they don't want to pay you as much because they're like, you know what? There's a handful of really good actors in your age group, and I can offer any one of them the part, and whoever is willing to do it for the money we want to spend on it, you know, that's what we're going to do. So you're like, okay, and then you know, after a while, you're like, really, I want to fight for a part where I get like 3 lines. You know, I used to have my own show on TV. Now I got to fight for a part where I got 3 lines. It's like, who cares? Yeah. You know, I'm not really getting to do my craft. I still love doing theater, although it doesn't pay very much. I met my wife in the theater, Vanessa Waters, and, you know, we have a lovely relationship together, and we love doing theater. She's out directing a show right now. She's not getting paid for it, but she loves it, and she's an artist, and she gets to do it, you know. Awesome. So the voiceover work is kind of, you know, age-proof. You know, I mean, you know, the proof is in some of my favorite voice actors that were probably doing it when I was a little kid or still around doing it, and I get to work with them.
That's awesome.
You know, I get to work with some of the biggest actors in Hollywood, you know, who come in to do voice work, and I get to work with the best voice actors in Hollywood, and, you know, we all enjoy each other, too. When somebody's cooking and doing a good job, we're all laughing and having a great time, and, you know, I feel blessed. You know, I've certainly been doing it. I've been making a living as an actor, since 1980 is when I got my first off-Broadway show in New York and moved to New York. And really that's when I started purely supporting myself as an actor. And so that's 39 years. I've been making a living as an actor for 39 years.
That's incredible.
And since I moved out here after winning Star Search, making, you know, a living that actually wasn't poverty level, you know, and, you know, also making enough money each year to get my health insurance and making enough money to, you know, where it's a real job, you know, where I have I've been able to put money away for a pension and the whole deal. You know, it's like, you don't think of these things when you first start out. You go, well, I'll either be really poor and I'll be giving tours at Universal Studios, or like Robin Williams used to say, you want a prize with that? You know, or I'm going to be super rich. You know, you don't think that there's actually a place for you to make a real living in between, and have your, you know, to me, the joy is in having my characters known and popular.
That's awesome.
I don't need to have the fame. I don't need to have, you know, to hide out when I go to a restaurant and have paparazzi take my picture. I don't need that.
You don't want to be like Kim Kardashian, where you can't go anywhere.
You know, the only thing I envy about Kim Kardashian is her ass. I wish I had an ass like that.
I would.
Get a little padding for my old age.
I'd never wear pants.
My back is getting breeding hips. Yeah,
that's fucking hilarious.
But you know, it's like, who needs that? You know, but Kim Kardashian is not an actress. She doesn't have what I have. She doesn't have the opportunity to do, you know, to express her talent she has a talent, obviously, and she made herself rich off of it, and that's the ability to be popular. It's not an easy talent to have. You know, the Madonnas of this world and people like that, it's not an easy thing to maintain and keep reinventing yourself over and over again and staying in the game. It's a really difficult task. You know, now they expect everybody to do it with social media and stuff, and who cares?
Yeah.
We're bombarded with social media. You know, there's an 8-year-old kid who's a billionaire because he reviews toys. You know, which is great. I love that kid did that. I love that it happened for him. But you know, it's probably going to ruin his life.
Oh, absolutely.
I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. You know.
That's crazy. Yeah.
You know, I had the opportunity. I had my own kids show on the USA Network years ago. It was really, really psychedelic. It was really bizarre. It was. We aimed it more at stoners than kids, but the network loved it for their kids programming. But it was originally supposed to be a show, you know, aimed at adults who loved everything from, you know, the stuff they grew up with, like Howdy Doody to Pee Wee Herman.
It
was even more
Johnny Time
crazy.
show.
Yes, Johnny Time, exactly. Yeah. And that was, think Mike Myers with his own kids show. And this was before Mike Myers was even on the air. So it was, you know, the characters were, you know, original and different than what other people were doing. And, you know, I had like 80-something characters. A handful would show up every episode, and we'd pull some kid through the TV set, and they'd have some problem with it. The kid had lost her braces or something, and we'd go into the couch. I'd take her into the couch, and there would be all these crazy characters, you know, there, and all played by me, you know, and
awesome.
We'd shoot all the characters separately and put it all together, and it was really fun. I got to hire all my friends, and it was really, really great time. But it was after that, you know, I got an opportunity to do some other programming aimed towards, you know, children and young adults and that kind of thing, and I was asked to do the Amanda Show on Nickelodeon, and seeing how talented a kid, you know, Amanda Bynes was, and, you know, seeing how much she had her head on her shoulders at the time and all that stuff. And you see though, with these kids, you know, things are put in front of them, and everybody like blows smoke up their ass, like, you're so fantastic and you rule the world and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, then the kid realizes at a certain point it's all hype, and you believe your own hype, you're lost in the water. You know, it's not about that. It's about you continuing to do what you love doing and doing it well. And if you're popular enough to be able to keep that going, you know, and then these other kids see like the Lindsay Lohans of the world getting popular by, you know, getting themselves in trouble and stuff. And they're like, wow, my career's like not doing really well. Maybe if I get caught drunk driving, everybody will know about it. And, you know, and then before you know it, these kids become very self-conscious, and you know, I mean, they don't really have any sense of reality anymore of what the world is really like around them. You know, it's only what they think people perceive of them, and that's not healthy.
No, absolutely not.
So, like, if I had kids, I don't have kids. If I had kids, I would never, you know, I would never put them in the industry at a young age. You know, it's not healthy for them. There are a lot of kids that have done really well for themselves doing that, but, you know, can you imagine?
It's few and far between, though. Yeah.
Yeah, just living your whole life insulated from everybody else and only knowing what it's like to grow up in the public eye.
Yeah.
You know,
living a normal life as a kid's hard enough nowadays.
Oh yeah, forget it. You know, when I moved out here to LA, the first thing that I noticed that was different from back east was that, you know, kids and at first I noticed it was like kids college age and stuff. You know, when I was in high school and college, it was all about trying to fit in. These kids all already, and you're talking about the 80s, they were already at that point where it was all about standing out. And now with social media, that's trickled down to the youngest kid. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm tap dancing, you know, and I got like, you know, 100,000 people saw me do it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's not even important anymore. Who cares anymore?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, you know, you know, my wife teaches as well, as she has, you know, very young students, and she goes, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a YouTube star. It's like, really?
Oh, no, yeah.
What are you going to do? I don't know, but I want to be one. It looks like it'd be a fun way to make money. It was like, well, if it's still around and you have the opportunity, good luck on you.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I don't
YouTube
want to ruin
stars.
anybody's dream or judge anybody's dream, but come on.
Yeah, there's a lot of YouTube stars that are going away from YouTube because YouTube is, kind of basically shooting themselves in their own foot, because they're kind of screwing over a lot of people. So who knows if we're even going to have that in 10 years.
Oh, I know. Everything, comes and goes. There's popularity, everything. And now, because everything is put right out in front of you, people get bored so quickly. They have the attention span of a gnat. These kids don't play with each other. Kids don't play with each other, face to face. They go home and they get on the computer and they talk to their friends on the computer and play games opposite each other and stuff. I mean, I used to go home and my mother would go, "Just be back by dinner," and we'd take off and go do whatever we did and had a great time. Of course, we were lucky to still be alive, but I saw there's this commercial where there's kids, they're challenged with physical disabilities and stuff like that, and I guess it's a commercial for a special game pad where they can play with each other and compete, and it's really moving. I mean, it's really wonderful to see that there's opportunities for kids to do things that make them feel good about themselves that they may not otherwise, especially kids that feel like outsiders. You know what I mean? And if there's that kind of thing. So I'm not judging those things, but if that's all kids are going to do and they're not going to have the opportunity to get out and have some kind of, it's so funny. I was trying to think. Yeah, they have no social skills. Yeah. I'm sitting and I'm not complaining. I'm just, talking observationally about the way things have changed. And I think one of the really great things about horror that continues is that they use practical effects, and I think that a lot of people I meet that come to the conventions and stuff are like, yeah, I love doing effects and I love doing practical effects and stuff like that. And I was like, well, this is the genre for you then. That's great, because, stuff like CGI and those kind of things change on a weekly basis, so you'll go see a movie that's all those kind of effects and you're like, oh boy, they look terrible compared to today's effects, and it's not really even that old. But you look at the practical effects. I mean, Walking Dead didn't do any different effects than what they did in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, true.
George Romero. There's nothing different about it. And George Romero's was more effective in black and white than what they did. You know what I mean? It's basically a bunch of people. If you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know it was that different if you didn't hear all the wet noises in the background.
Yeah.
I work a lot with some of the actors. I worked on Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters, and with the women, female actors in it, and that kind of thing. And it was funny because a lot of the other actors that I work with were all people that they do all the background
noises.
For Walking Dead.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, oh my God, you poor people, man! If that's all you do all day, I'm surprised you have vocal cords left.
Wet noises and grunting and
yeah. And you're like, oh my God.
That's
but
hilarious.
it's really cool to see. There was a big fascination with steampunk, and I'm like, what is the fascination with steampunk with these kids? And then when I thought about it, I was like, well, you see all the gears and the belts and the things, and you see how things work, and that's kind of cool, and why it's such a great throwback for people, because everything kids use these days, they don't even know how it works. You put an iPhone in a kid's hand, he knows how to work it, he really knows how to work it well, but he doesn't know how it works. He goes, oh, well, there's a chip in there. Yeah, well, how does a chip work? I don't know. It holds information. There's no little rat on a wheel making it go. It's like there's no pistons firing. There's no, even cars. It's like people don't know how to work on their cars. They're all electronic now.
Absolutely.
It's like, when I was in high school, we used to take apart my buddy's car and put it back together, when it wasn't working, and it's times are different, and times are quick, and it's like entertainment is is hard to put a handle on what'll work and what won't work. And I really love the new genre of miniseries on cable, on Netflix and Prime, Amazon Prime and the cable networks and stuff, where they're doing, instead of a movie, they're doing, 8 or 11 episodes of something and really taking their time telling the story, and they're getting the best actors they can get, even if they're not necessarily the biggest box office actors, and, this kind of stuff, but hiring good people, and they're not paying them the best, and the amount of money they'd be making on a network show, unless they're a big star or that kind of thing. But hell yeah, I'd take one of those any day of the week and spend all my time doing it, because it's what we really love doing, is doing something like that.
Yeah, that's been a great thing to see with all the Netflix and the Hulus and even networks like HBO and stuff like that. The series and original programming has gone a long way since, when you started.
Independent features have kind of gone out the window because they can't really make money with them. You know, I mean, truly, there was a second life for those kind of things because, they need to stream a lot of content. When you turn on a thing and you're looking for something, you go, no. Oh, that looks interesting. Who's in that? I don't know any of the actors, but it looks interesting. Well, the poster has a naked woman on it. Let's watch that. It's like, whatever makes people turn on something. But then when you hear about something, the cream rises to the top and somebody goes, oh, well, you got to watch, you got to go watch Bird Box. Yeah. And you're like, well, what's that? What's Bird Box? Well, Sandra Bullock. It's like, really? They got Sandra Bullock? Well, no, she actually put it together, and it's really kind of unique and different. And, and at first we start watching it, we're going, I'm not believing this or whatever. And then all of a sudden you go, you know what, this is kind of disturbing in an entertaining kind of way. And then you're like, wow, they were right. This is kind of pretty wild. I can't turn away from it. I'll probably have nightmares, but it was really cool to watch. And then Ozark or, whatever. You get to see these people doing their best work. And, you get a great actor like William H. Macy, and he winds up doing 10, 11 seasons of a series because he's having such a great time doing it because it's such great stuff they're writing for him, and the rest of the time, he gets tired of getting some bit part in some movie that doesn't use his talents, and we get to appreciate them at their best. Yeah. So it's, I get so bored with I've won a few little awards here and there in my time. I've been nominated for some Emmys and, as a voice actor and I was close to getting an Emmy nomination for Reefer Madness, but it didn't happen. And, you get disappointed when that kind of thing happens. But then you're like, really? Do I really care? There's like 10 award shows during award season, and it's the same friggin' people that they give them to, or they hire. I'm really glad when I see somebody new.
Well, don't worry, you'll be up for.
And I'm especially happy to see people of all kinds of colors and races and came from other countries and this kind of stuff. I'm so happy to see all that diversity and all this thing, and not just because it's racially diverse, because it's different. Because I'm tired of seeing the same people over and over again. That they did a great job. But the reason they did a great job was because they put asses in the seats, which is to their credit, and people pay them the most money, and they get the best parts because they can get the best parts because, they've become the most popular. But, there's so often that I see something that I'm going, this would have been so much better if they didn't hire a star in it. It just would have been so much better. Yeah.
Well, don't worry. You'll be up for another award here next year for best
Replicon Radio Awards.
Yeah, it'll be a Replicon Radio Award.
Oh man, I couldn't believe it. He talked about his puppy's dog shit coming out of his ass.
Yeah.
That's the type
of shit. Sausage links. I lost it, man. I lost it. That's what he opened with. That's what he opened the conversation with. It's unbelievable.
He called it that we were sitting in a bathtub together. He fucking knew it, man.
That's the shit that wins, though. So you might.
He called the shit poop.
I can hear your voice. I can hear your voices bouncing off the tile. What are you talking about?
He called the shit poop.
That's the sunroom that we're in.
Awesome.
Hey, listen, you guys are a lot of fun to talk to, and if there's, I'd love to open it up for, your specific questions. I know I talked a lot about just what was on my mind at the moment.
I do have a question.
But, which is, I think, sometimes a lot more fun than people asking the same questions that people mostly know the answers to. But
well, we love doing it that way. We just like it to fucking flow. We don't like to ask the normal questions that, like you said, everybody knows the fucking answers to, that you've answered 1,000 times. It's, we already know that.
Right.
It's like, well, we just sit here and have a conversation. We'll touch base on things and just,
But we'll stick those questions in the middle.
Yeah, we'll stick the questions, throughout it.
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
I've noticed that you've done a lot of anime voices and video game voices. Which ones? Which one do you prefer to do voices for? Or does it matter?
Out of anime and video games?
Yeah.
Or all different voice work?
Well, do you like doing voices for video games more than doing anime work, or
About the same.
are they about the same?
I like the stuff that has narrative to it. There's a lot of stuff that we do that it's hard work, because you're sitting there screaming and yelling, and it's, literally it's like there's lists of lines that you need for this character, and they go, okay, give me 3 takes of that line, and give me 3 takes of that line, give me 3 takes of that line. Okay, give me 3 takes of that line, and you do it, and it's challenging, and I'm grateful for it. It comes out really good when they're done with it. It's hard on the voice. You get paid for it. No residuals, even though they're making crap loads of money on it.
Yeah. Right.
And then I go and do stuff for Illumination, who are just like on fire with their projects, doing Secret Life of Pets and Minions and The Grinch, and and they bring me in along with Carlos Alazraqui, who's Rocco and the Taco Bell dog, and Jim Cummings and Lori Allen, and and all these some really good people, and we come in and have a blast doing bringing voices to all their additional characters. And back in the day, we used to do a lot more of the lead characters and that kind of thing. And those, of course, are now a lot stunt cast a lot, meaning they're cast with whatever celebrity they can get in them. And it's understandable, but but then we get to every once in a while we get to do some character that's really a standout character, and we're like, oh, this is so much fun. And the material is great. We have a great time doing it. The product is just number one. And they also reward us with our work by, if it does well, we make some money on the side with the royalties and stuff,
awesome.
which is really awesome. We can actually make a living doing this and have fun doing it, and also, they pay us to come in and deliver. They know if they bring in that same group of people, we're going to give them everything they need.
Right.
They're not going to have to finesse it out of us. They're not going to have to, we didn't get it. We got to go back. Let's go get somebody else. None of that's going to happen. And, but then there's, stuff like anime. Like I did Afro Samurai, and it's a lot more fun if the other actors, at least one of the other actors in the other room. I expected to show up and do my bit and leave. I showed up and Samuel L. Jackson's in the room with me, and I'm doing my scenes that are with Samuel L. Jackson in the room. We're having a friggin' blast.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, this is awesome. This is cool. So I'm pretty sure that answers your question, but that I enjoy the narrative stuff that plays out more like, okay, this is kind of a Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of thing, and you're playing a really fun character. He's kind of a slimy little guy.
Whoa! You dropped the phone. Plug it back in.
Something to it, other than just doing a voice of a thug. Hey, man, hey, the bad guy's after his boss, and that kind of stuff, which is, we always make fun. I mean, we always make our own fun in those situations, and we have a good time. And the people in that part of the industry are just the best people to work with. They're so awesome. But, obviously you want something challenging, you want something fun. I had been doing Pete Puma for the new Looney Tunes, and it was just like one of my favorite characters as a kid. And it's not an easy character to nail, and because he was only in a couple of episodes, like over all the years of the Warner Brothers cartoons,
Right.
And so he can't come in, and then they also want to do something a little different with it. They want me to put a little more Tommy Chong in there with it and that kind of stuff, and and you're having fun. And the other actors are laughing their asses off. Bob Bergen is doing Bugs Bunny, and Bergen is doing Porky Pig, and Bob Bergman is doing Bugs, and D Baker is doing Daffy Duck, and we're all laughing.
You guys are all
our asses off.
together. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, these are characters that we loved, we grew up with, and then to see them come to life in a different way, and we're all doing it. And I know you, I'm doing that for them. They're like, oh my God, because you're going, he's doing the character I can't do, or he's doing the character I can't do, and
that's awesome.
A lot of fun to watch each other work, and we have a blast doing it.
Yeah, I was saying,
on a show.
Your list of voice is, it's
insane.
There's
it's
no
insane.
way. Kind of a random question. I would say, to me, as a fan of the characters, my standout, obviously besides the Crypt Keeper, would be like Buster Bunny.
Yeah,
and that's I love that.
I felt honored to do Buster Bunny, although I never really brag about Buster because I didn't create him. That was Charlie Adler, and I work with Charlie all the time. He directs a lot of cartoons, and he's so talented. He's so good, and when they said, "Hey, we want you to come do Buster Bunny," and I was like, "Charlie Adler does Buster Bunny," and they go, "Yeah, Charlie's directing now. We kind of had a little thing, he doesn't want to do it." And so I called Charlie, through my agents, I called Charlie and I said, "What's going on?" And he goes, "You're welcome to it. Go get it." These people are like, whatever, and that happens when you work for people for a long time, and you expect to get paid, whatever it was. But I don't go in and audition for a part under somebody because they're in the middle of trying to negotiate their contract or something. That kind of sucks. There are people that'll do that all over the place. And, if they're not working, you can't blame them. But at the same time, I wouldn't do it. I don't need to do it. And, and I wouldn't want somebody doing it to me. But, but it's such a great character, and he brought so much to it. And, they let me do a little of my own thing with it, but it was really more, trying to channel Charlie. And the reason they thought of me was because there was an episode where Buster Bunny does the Crypt Keeper. And
that's awesome.
He opens up the book and the whole deal, and it's like a Halloween episode or whatever, and they were like, "Oh, that was funny. It was like Buster Bunny doing the Crypt Keeper. So if Charlie could do Buster Bunny doing the Crypt Keeper, we should be able to get the Crypt Keeper to do Buster Bunny." So they called me. I didn't even audition. Yeah, I didn't even audition for it. Andrea Romano, the director, just called me and said, "We want to give you this part." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's check with Charlie first." But so I wound up doing it. It was a lot of fun to do.
That's awesome.
Really a lot of fun. Those scripts were so fun on so many different levels. Steven Spielberg hand-stamped every one of those scripts. It didn't get made if he didn't read it first and like it.
That's awesome.
Love it. So there were. All those episodes they did were fun. I'll tell you, one of the most fun shows that I worked on was Cat Dog.
I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
That was so much fun, and we had such a great group of guys and ladies, and it was me and Jim Cummings and sorry, my brain's not firing on all cylinders. Talking about firing on cylinders. Tom Kenny, Carlos Alazraki, Billy West. A character that came and went was Dwight Schultz, played this nasty little squirrel. I can't remember the name of the character. Maria Bamford, I think I said her name right. She's so talented. She's a great stand-up.
Yeah, you
and
said
all
it
these
right.
great actors that would come in and do these characters, and we had a blast. They're like, okay, you're booked every Tuesday to go work on Cat Dog. And it was like, and we would just be cracking each other up the whole time. They go, okay, guys, if we're going to get through this, it's like, oh, it's okay. If you go into overtime, you don't have to pay us overtime. You know, we were like, because we were having so much fun, you know.
Yeah.
And obviously, Jim Cummings and Tom Kenny were so good as Cat Dog, and then all these supporting characters were just freaking great. You know, and to this day, I have really great working relationships with all those guys from that, people from that particular show. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. I don't remember how many episodes we did. It was a lot of them, but we sure had fun doing it.
So, I mean, you've definitely done a lot of iconic characters like, Buster, and recently you got to do Scrooge McDuck, which is awesome.
I can't believe it. And in the vein of Paul Winchell, I mean, not Paul Winchell, Young, from Mr. Ed. What was his first name? Young.
I'm not sure.
I'm really tired.
That's all right.
I can't believe my brain.
You remember a lot of names. And a lot
Yeah,
of
that's I
characters,
can't even
That's
remember one.
that's always the first thing to go though when you're tired is names. You're like, yeah, he was Wilbur in Mr. Ed, but he originated the voice of Scrooge McDuck, and they wanted somebody who could bring that version of it to life, and was a lot of fun. I mean, to do classic characters is a lot of fun, but to also create
Alan Young.
Original ones, Alan Young, thank you. And to create your own is just an amazing opportunity, and you take great pride in it. And so I'm not putting down having done Buster Bunny. Contrary, I consider it a great honor that I got to follow in Charlie Adler's footsteps. But there's something about getting to create the voice of a character on your own. That's really
that's what I was going to ask. Like,
awesome.
what's the problem? Like, obviously, when you're creating the voice, you think of what the character would be. What's that process like versus, like, I can't even imagine trying to just recreate like that. But it seems like that would be even harder than the couple of the original one's your idea. So, I mean,
recreating can be harder because, you're trying to not only nail it. Sometimes they don't want an exact voice match. Sometimes they just want you to make it your own, but they want it to really emulate the spirit of what originally was. And so in that sense, you're either going to nail it or not. But when you're doing an impersonation, there may be 20 guys that can do that impersonation. And it's whoever they wind up picking, either somebody they've worked with multiple times, or, and they know that they'll deliver every time they come in, or they'll pick somebody who maybe did a version of it that has a little life to it or a little funny to it that wasn't expected, or, that kind of thing. And so the process, would be like, well, if they really want you to nail it, you're going to go listen to especially to the, a lot of times they'll use lines from the character that originally came from one of the episodes of something that, from the original stuff. And you'll listen to that and you'll try to nail it. And then you throw all that away and you just go put it down. You put it down as yourself doing it, and so that it's alive and you do your own acting with it. But, creating a new voice for something has become harder over the years because now you do it all at home. It's like I have my own setup here where they send me the material as opposed to walking in with a director there or somebody, or casting director, whoever who's listening to you going, what you're doing is really great, but we want to make them a little older. We want to make them a little less charactery, use a little more of your voice in it, that kind of stuff, and that helps you get the part. But,
sure.
When you're recording, they don't want you to do 10 versions of it. They want you to do 1 or 2 versions at the most of it and send it to them, And so there's a little bit of pissing in the wind on that because your version of it's going to be different than somebody else's version of it.
Yeah,
sometimes they even... Yeah, sometimes you know what the character is going to look like, and they've sent you pictures, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they send you artwork at all.
That's crazy.
And you're just trying to create it. And if you know the style of the animation. You know, like it's somebody who's done other stuff, and you're like, okay, that's going to be, you know, a Klasky Chupo kind of show. I know that the characters, you know, have a certain amount of fun to them. It's like, you know, when I did Ray Rocket for Rocket Power, I was just doing an impersonation of the surfer dude dad across the street from me.
Totally.
He doesn't know it because he'd probably want his cut, but you know.
Nobody tell him.
But you know, I just, you know, because I used to imitate him all the time for my other neighbors, and they'd crack up. Hey, Johnny K, how you doing? You know, and so I just went in and, you know, when I saw the pictures of him, I go, God, it even looks like my neighbor. You know, so I did it. You know, when I went and auditioned for it, I just did it. And, you know, I know you know, it became more alive because it was, you know, something that I had already, you know, had created life for, and it was based on somebody. It wasn't just a voice, you know. It was a real acting part, you know, and I had fun with it, and that's contagious, you know.
Got nothing wrong with that.
You know, for anybody who does voiceover, you know, it's like, you know, you can have confidence, you know, in having fun with what you're doing and the character. If you're not having fun with the choice you've made, then try something else.
Sure.
Even if you don't get it, you have a better chance of getting it by, you know, doing a version of something that you shine to, that you really enjoy.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I mean, I go to these horror conventions. It's funny, and I get to, you know, sign autographs for the Crypt Keeper. I have so much fun as a Crypt Keeper, and I so enjoyed the project, and I so enjoyed the history of it and the whole thing. But I see other people, they come to the conventions and they're signing autographs for a character they hated doing it, or they didn't have that much fun doing it, or they didn't really even have that much history with it, you know, or anything. And it's like, you know, of course they're going to please the fans. Of course, nobody's going to turn down money if you're getting paid to do it. And it's what we do. We do make a living at this. Mm-hmm. So I never judge anybody for, you know, making money at this in the way that they can. But, you know, I feel lucky that it's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I get to go promote that, and it's still popular after all these years. I mean, you know, obviously we'd all be happy if it was back on the air and the rights were reverted back to the people I did it with, and they could use the Crypt Keeper that we did and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. That's something a lot of people obviously have talked about, and people were asking in our chat about all the possible reboots. I know you were trying to do something with that. Is there any progress on that, or is it just to run into walls with the rights?
Well, you know, I mean, there's only one scenario where they could have the Crypt Keeper that I did, and that's if, you know, the partners, which were Joel Silver, Richard Donner, Walter Hill, Bob Zemeckis, and David Geiler, you know, who were the big producers on Tales from the Crypt, the one that I did, get the rights back. Because that Crypt Keeper was one that they created specifically for their version of Tales from the Crypt. Mm-hmm. Anybody else got the rights to Tales from the Crypt, they certainly can make their own Crypt Keeper. He was part of the original comic books and part of the licensing, but they couldn't use that version of the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
And in the same vein, they own, you know, the guys I did Tales from the Crypt with, they own that version of the Crypt Keeper to be able to, you know, do things with here and there, but they can't use him as the Crypt Keeper without the rights to Tales from the Crypt anymore. They still own the rights to all the episodes that were made and the movies and the images and all that stuff. But, you know, it's the Gaines family, William Gaines's family, who inherited, the rights. You know, his legacy. You know, it's up to them. And, you know, you can't blame them for wanting to, if they're going to put it out there to do it, make money. But at the same time, you want to do it with the right people. Yeah. You want to do it in a way that the fans are going to love it. So, I think they do well to do it with our guys, you know, whether it's the best money-making situation for them or not. Because it's not just an annuity. It is a legacy.
Absolutely. And,
it's, you know, it's a better situation for them to continue that legacy and let it go on than to do something that's a flash in the pan and goes away.
Yeah.
And doesn't have the cool licensing and the cool image of the I mean, the Crypt Keeper is the thing that you see everywhere.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't see, you know, I mean, you see the comic book images; those are great, and you see all these different things. And the EC comics are awesome. The artwork that were done in the EC comics influenced everything you see in horror.
Yeah.
Everything. We used to use the comic books as the actual storyboards for the episodes. Like if there was a shot, like the frame of the comic book had, you're looking at it from a point of view that's about the guy's waist, and he's holding a head in his hand, and in the background is the person running away with no head, and all you see is the guy's hip and that's the way they would shoot it, and which was really cool. They were tried really hard to bring the comic book to life. They didn't just make their own thing, and that's why I think there was a little bit of fans that were like, oh wow, don't let that person do it. They're going to make it something that's not Tales from the Crypt. They're just kind of using the franchise name, and they'll use the stories from the comic books, and they'll maybe they'll make their own version of the Crypt Keeper and the Witch, and oh no, what are they going to do? Put Steve Buscemi in a shroud? What are they going to do? It's like,
you never know.
It's like. It's a responsibility that they have to keep it alive, to keep a little dead guy alive. But we're hoping that we get the rights back. Sadly,
is that something you guys are actively pursuing and trying to do? I know you've talked about it a few times.
I'm not involved in it at all. I'm not a producer or anything. Obviously, Jack Wall, whose job it was to do a lot of the merchandising and stuff for Tales from the Crypt, producer, writer, advertising man, really great man. And I've been told that he recently passed away. I haven't seen anything that said that. I have to find out. I've been avoiding it because he was such a dear man in my life, and he constantly called me, hey Johnny baby, we're gonna do, the Crypt Keeper is gonna be doing Bud Light commercials, and and he was always trying to work on trying to get it going again. But it's tough because people want what they want, and if they own the rights, it involves lawyers, and it involves this, and it involves that, and so he'd be like, hey, can you put this down for me? We're going to use it as a little promotional thing to help try to get the rights. And I go, sure, I will. Of course I will. And in the meantime, nobody's been keeping this franchise alive more than me.
No,
going to conventions and, interviewing and, having somebody to talk to about the show.
Absolutely.
There's nobody else to really talk to. Certainly Kevin Yeager's still around, and he's very great to his fans who contact him about stuff on social media and that kind of thing. And he's, he's so talented, and he's still working in the best projects in Hollywood and stuff. And then there's, Todd Masters, who did all the effects for the actual episodes, and he's one of the best in the business, and he's still doing practical effects, and he's certainly, I'll go do they'll have a screening of Demon Knight, and they'll invite Ernest Dickerson and myself to come talk to the audience or whatever, or Todd and that kind of thing, which is really cool, and keeping that alive. And so it's kind of a really cool kind of thing. So let's keep the little dead guy alive, kiddies.
Absolutely, that's something I can get behind.
Yeah, I definitely.
Well,
I hope
guys, I
something
gotta wrap
happens
it up.
for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys. I hope that a lot of people come see us at
Astronomicon.
Astronomicon. Thank you, and because we're gonna party our asses off.
Oh yeah!
Yes,
I know.
will.
I'll stop by and say hello. And I'm sure the other two will
Absolutely.
as well.
We'll be there all weekend.
We're at least going to have a drink together.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do some karaoke.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah,
hopefully it won't be. Hopefully our faces won't freeze off like it was there last week.
hopefully not. Last year was pretty bad with the snowstorm, but it was still a great time.
From my understanding,
Yeah.
I heard it's going to be pretty good this year,
the
though.
snow is melting.
I mean, we'll all be inside and toasty. If people show up, that's all that matters.
Right.
You know, we're there's a lot of great people coming to this convention for people to meet and party with. So,
Amen.
the kind of group that they hooked up to show up are the kind of people who come out and have a good time with the fans.
Absolutely.
I've been to a lot of conventions where people don't even come out. Like I'm the only one partying with the fans. Or me and Kane Hodder or whoever. But there's a good group of people that all come out to have a good time.
For sure.
And so show up. We're going to have a blast.
Be there. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be out there. It was a pleasure talking to you, man. We could probably talk all damn night. So
You're right.
we'll have to have you back on again.
Pleasure's all mine, kiddies.
All right, brother. Well, yeah, make sure you guys stay tuned. Check out John Kassir on all his. He's on social medias, even though he hates it.
Well, be careful what you ask for, kiddies. You may get it.
Awesome, man. Well, welcome to the Replicon Radio family. You're always welcome here, brother, and it's definitely a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Raptors.
Awesome, man.
Ciao.